Hey, I'm Gory B Movie, and today I'm reviewing The Love Witch. So welcome to day 7 of Shocktober. Yeah, I know I'm a few days behind. I had a few technical difficulties and had to re-record this review, but we're going to be back on track with a few extra reviews hopefully today. So The Love Witch was written, directed, edited, and produced by Anna Biller. She also worked on the set design and art direction. She made many of the props in the background, including the paintings, and she played the harp music. She's incredibly talented, and she worked on all areas of production. About the only thing she didn't do in The Love Witch was star in it. The titular Love Witch is played by Samantha Robinson. Despite the mod 60s look she's got going for her, she's a modern-day witch that uses spells and magic to get men to fall in love with her. So is this movie worth a watch? Well, let's get into the good, the bad, and the gory. For starters, I gotta say, I love the look of this film. It's got a very 1960s Technicolor look to it. It's got bright, candy colors, beautiful reds, pinks, greens, and blues that just pop on screen. It was shot on 35mm, so it has that kind of retro look to it. It's got some of those flecks on the screen, but it's like a 1960s film if they had HD. I mean, it's beautiful and clear and just gorgeous to look at. There are some amazing locations and sets, like this beautiful Victorian house that Elaine, the Love Witch, moves into at the start of the film, and the costumes and makeup are phenomenal. I was very jealous of Elaine's bright pastel eyeshadows that she pulls off so well. I also love the music. Like everything in this film, it's very tense but very beautiful. It's very giallo-like. In fact, 2 of the songs were taken from 2 1971 giallo movies, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin and The Fifth Chord. Also, as a practicing witch, I really appreciated the portrayal of witchcraft in this movie. In a lot of films, it's a little too theatrical. You have somebody saying an incantation, and then there's the lightning and the levitating, and it's all very movie-like. But real witchcraft is a little more practical, like we see in this movie. There's herbs and oils, and there's a lot of concentration and will that goes into these spells. I also liked a lot of the witch culture that we see here, like how Elaine interacts with her coven, the things they say, like bright blessings and merry meet. There's a hand fasting, which is a pagan wedding ceremony, and even the explanation of how spells work. Yes, they are a concentration of one's will to achieve some result, but you're not supposed to mess with somebody else's will. And her coven warns her about that. They say, you shouldn't mess with love spells because they can backfire, and they do backfire in this film. Now, in the film, Elaine being a witch works as a metaphor for the fears men have of women, but it works very well because she's not just a stock villain character. She's not just the evil, wicked witch. She's a fully developed character that I think we sympathize with and understand. That's certainly something I want to see with more witch characters in horror movies. This is also a very feminist film, and Anna Biller is very astute in a lot of the points she makes about women. Particularly the pressures on a woman to be a fantasy and not a person. The pressures to cook and clean and make babies and be gorgeous all the time, but to ask for nothing in return. Also, how being treated as sex objects and being objectified dehumanizes women. That's something we see very clearly with Elaine's character. This is also a film about love and obsession, what love does to people and how love can destroy people. There's also a lot of satire and comedy here. I particularly loved how a lot of the guys have names that mean dong, like Richard, i.e. Dick, and Peters. And this is a very unique and unpredictable story, and that kept me invested and interested in the film. I gotta say, when I put this movie in, I was completely engrossed for about an hour. Then I started to get a little tired of it. The novelty of the cool cinematography and all of the wonderful props and makeup wore off, and I started to feel like it was dragging on a little too long. And while The Love Witch is a smart film and it's a gorgeous film, it's a little bit of style and message over story. And yes, Anna Biller is a feminist, and she definitely has an agenda here. And I think she makes a lot of good points, and there's a lot of truth to the messages in the film, particularly regarding the pressures on women and objectification. However, when it comes to the elements of the story that deal with love and emotion, I feel like the scope of those messages gets a little bit narrow and even a little bit sexist. Overall, the men in the film are painted as unemotional, detached, and incapable of love, whereas the women are love-obsessed. It is interesting, but it's a very broad stroke to paint across men and women as a whole. And these points in the film are not subtle. Anna Biller beats us over the head with these time and time again, to the point that the film becomes a little preachy. One thing I gotta praise about The Love Witch is equal opportunity nudity. You get boobs, bajingos, dong droppage, the full Monty. As for the bloodshed, for a horror film I expect more, but there were 4 on-screen kills, though one of them happens before the events of the movie. You get murder, suicide, poisoning, stabbing, and a fair amount of blood. However, I will say that this is not a scary film. I'm not even sure if I would call it a horror film. Honestly, I think The Love Witch escapes classification because I saw it listed on IMDb as a horror comedy, and yeah, there are some funny moments in it, but nothing laugh out loud, and I certainly wouldn't say that there's anything horrifying about the picture. But then I honestly don't know what else you would call it. So, should you see it? The Love Witch is a gorgeous, unique, and intelligent film that I recommend that you see. However, I will say that I went into this with very high expectations. This was recommended to me by a lot of people, and I have to say, while I liked the film, I didn't love it. It's not a movie I ever need to see again, and certainly not one I would ever own, but I'm glad I saw it. However, the majority of people I've spoken to were really blown away by this movie, so chances are you're gonna love this film a lot more than I did. I highly recommend The Love Witch to feminists, pagans, fans of 60s and 70s horror films, fans of giallo movies, and anybody who wants to see a well-developed witch character in a movie, or fans of witch movies in general. But I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts on The Love Witch in the comments below. And if everything in my world goes as planned, hopefully I will be able to catch up on my Shocktober list and be back later today with a review of Body Bags. Thanks for watching. Cut!